Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for our online demo of the BeckerBALLOT electronic voting platform. My name is Andrea, and I'm co-founder of Shift Digital, along with my partner, Brett Philo. We're a digital marketing agency in New Jersey that over 4.5 years ago partnered with Becker Law Firm to be their development partner to create a few software products specifically for the condo and HOA industry. These products were designed to help save money, time, and streamline operations for your associations. The firm, Becker, guided us and continues to guide us to ensure that the software platforms are aligned with any Florida statutes and any Florida, New Jersey, and New York statutes, laws, and legal requirements that need to be followed as we handle the software development, sales support, and customer service for the platforms. The first one we built was My Community Site, which is a website solution and document management system launched in early 2019, which allows associations to quickly and easily spin up a website for their association members to have a place to go online to see public and private documents and information put out by their association, along with typical website information like news and events, contact information, sending messages, board meeting information, agendas, etc. The second one, BeckerBALLOT, was launched in mid-2019 and is our online voting platform. This was a redesign of the first electronic voting platform called BeckerBALLOT, if anyone knew that from years ago. This new modern, responsive, mobile-friendly system is designed to make voting easier, save time and money from the paper ballot process, and move your association to be more technologically advanced and efficient. Brett's going to conduct a software demo of the software, and most of the questions that have been submitted already will be answered during his demo. If they're not, we'll make sure to address them afterwards. Our focus today will be on Florida, New Jersey, and New York voting statutes, and the software is already set up to adjust to those voting standards. Any questions that are of a legal nature that were submitted to us will not be answered by our team. They would need to be answered by an attorney. We are not attorneys and we will not answer any legal questions, just like we don't like Becker to answer any software questions. So it's a great partnership. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Brett to begin the demo. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrea. And thank you all for joining. We appreciate your time today. My portion of the presentation will be limited to providing first a quick demo of the software, and then any questions that I have not answered while I do the demo, I think Andrea will ask, and I will answer. And of course, I'm going to limit those to software functionality and setup and functional related questions. We do often get asked legal questions, and we always do direct folks back to their attorneys for that type of information. You should be able to see my screen right now. I am logged into the BeckerBALLOT platform as a administrator. When an association signs up on behalf of the Association for Electronic Voting, they're assigned a portal, which is a small website which you'll use to manage electronic voting, and which your voters will be invited to first to set up their account, create a secure password, and later to vote when a vote is available to them. All of those communications happen via the portal through email. Voters do need to provide their association with a consent to vote electronically, and will designate an email address that they'd like to use to vote. That's where all of those communications will be sent. When a voter logs in, they will only ever see this first tab, which I'm currently looking at. That's the Open Votes screen. A vote administrator will also see the vote builder, the voter roster, and the reports. I'm going to focus first on the vote builder, which is how we build an actual ballot in the portal. As Andrea will mention in just a few minutes, we can do this for the association. We will ask the association to provide us with the attorney prepared materials. Typically a notice packet is all we'll need. And then we can build the electronic ballot in the portal for you. We'll then share it with you as the vote administrator. We'll share it with your attorney for a quick eyes-on review, just to make sure it matches any of the materials that they prepared. And then that vote can be opened up to your association membership. To create a vote for those associations that would like to manage the process themselves, and that is certainly an option. Once logged in, click on the vote builder, click on create a new membership vote, and the system will ask for some very basic information. First is the name of the vote. So I'll just type a name. The ballot will typically have a name. It could be the annual meeting. Maybe there's a specific vote, a budget vote, an alteration vote. It can be named appropriately. The voters will see that listed on their open votes screen when the vote is available to them. We have two sets of dates, a registration and a vote open and close date. The registration open and close date is really instructive for the association management. This is when you'd like your membership to activate their account. Unless we're told to, we don't strictly enforce this time frame. Obviously, we want to encourage your voters to vote electronically, and if they miss the invite to create their account, we don't want to discourage them from doing so. If your association has strict requirements as to when a voter can register for electronic voting, we can enforce this date range. We don't do that by default. And I'll just pick a couple of dates here. Let's close registration. I'm going to open the vote at the same time. Oftentimes you'll, at least for the first vote, you'll open registration well in advance of electronic voting opening. Again, if your timeline permits, sometimes associations decide to adopt electronic voting, and that time frame is a little compressed. So those date ranges may overlap, which is perfectly fine. The vote open and close date is strictly enforced. The vote will open, in the case of the example I'm setting up now, exactly at 10 a.m. on December 12th. The vote will become available. The voters in the roster will receive an invite letting them know the vote is live, and they're going to get a link to log in to vote. The vote will close exactly at 10:15 on December 22nd. If a voter logged in at 10:16, the ballot would not be there for them. We recommend closing the vote around the time the meeting opens, but again, depending upon the requirements of the association, this can change. The vote results electronically are tabulated within a minute of the vote closing, so there's really no delay in accessing that data directly in the portal. So let's do 22nd. Okay, so I've created the basic shell of the ballot. Now I can add my questions. So I'll just click new vote item. Now ballot can have multiple questions on it. You can sign up for a single vote on behalf of your association, and if you had a bunch of association business you wanted to handle at once at one meeting, maybe you have your annual election, but you're also voting on a reserve question or a budget question or another proxy type of question, you can have multiple questions on the ballot. When you click add a new vote, you'll have a couple of different options here: alteration, amendment. Those are your general yes, no vote types. The way the selection is phrased can be changed, which I'll show you in just a moment. But if you had a vote that you felt didn't exactly fall within an alteration or an amendment, those items can be selected. It's just a yes or a no type of vote. Your voters never see the type of vote. They'll simply see the question, just like them looking at a paper ballot. So I'll click a quick alteration vote type first. You'll see I now have my answer selections have appeared down below. I could change the yes and the no to affirm, deny, whatever your ballot reads based on the preparation of the notice. This can be changed. Questions, if we're setting up the votes, and certainly I'll recommend this to the association administration, if they're setting up the electronic ballot, copy it from the ballot. We don't typically retype it. I have off to the side here, I have a some ballot language. So I'm just going to paste that in there. We don't like to retype things. We do proofread everything, obviously, and we'll share it with you, and then we'll share it with your attorney. But typos happen when you retype, so we do try to repaste. And then, of course, if there's any supporting material, for example, this is a quick demo of an alteration question related to reporting. If I had a report that I wanted to share that was attached in a packet, I could upload that. We always recommend you upload materials as PDFs. Voter won't require any additional software to review a PDF. Will open right up in their browser. So again, we want to make this as seamless as possible for the voter experience. PDFs, they don't need to download software. They don't need to have Microsoft Word or Excel. It'll just open right up in their browser. So I'll click save. I've now added a question. I'll show you another quick question as well. We're in the midst of it, election season. So I'll pick a quick election question. You'll notice when I select the election question type, the options now change a little bit in my vote builder. First question I'm going to ask, this isn't going to ask me, is how many selections a voter can make. So if you've got 3 people running and 2 seats available, pick 2. The system will enforce this. So if a voter tries to pick more than 2, the system will not let them. And there'll also be some language reminding a voter, as well as on the question, which I'll paste here as well while we're chatting, that they can't vote for more than those 2. Now, a voter can vote for less, just like they could on paper, but will prevent them from voting for more, just again to avoid introducing any errors. If you're in a state, and the system would understand this, if you're in a state where you're allowed to do write-in votes, or your association permits, in Florida, it does, some are permitted. New Jersey, by default, you can do write-in votes on elections. You can click this little checkbox, and then the system will automatically provide write-in spaces for as many selections are available. So in this case, I could have as many candidates listed, but I'd also have 2 write-ins, and a voter can select as many options are available up to the total number of selections. And then you would just simply copy and paste. In this case, I'm going to type a couple of names. System will alphabetize based on last name. And if you have a photo of the candidate, that can be uploaded to the ballot. If your candidate has provided you with a candidate information statement, again in PDF, that can be attached. It'll appear below the candidate's name as a link that can be opened in their browser. So again, all of the materials that would typically be sent in a packet will be included on the electronic version of the ballot. So I'll just add a third. And then I'll save that. So now I have 2 questions on my ballot. Third question, I'll just add as a quick example, reserve question. We do, when you pick the reserve question type, automatically add in Florida, the statutorily required reserve language. If you're voting in another state and the language differs, we can just choose alteration, and then that language can be pasted above or below the question in the question area. So, but we do try to make at least that part of the process a little easier. And again, you could add an attachment if need be. So now my ballot has 3 questions. So the process of setting up a ballot is a fairly simple, straightforward process. Again, we're happy to do it. That is an option that we do provide. There is a video on how to do this for vote administrators. There's some written instructions as well. So should an association have somebody who's comfortable using software like this, absolutely not a problem to do on your own. And we're also happy to review them just to make sure that, from a setup standpoint, they're correct. You should always have your attorney review any materials that you'll share with association membership just to make sure they're right before they go live. If my vote has been approved, then I can click preview the questions. That'll open up the ballot in a new window, just like a voter sees. They can page their way through the questions. If the vote has been reviewed and approved, click publish. You'll notice that it now appears on my open vote screen in preview mode. Voters have not been notified that it's live yet. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. when the vote opens, voters in the roster will receive an email that the vote is live for them. So pretty easy. At 10:15 on the 22nd, vote will automatically close. And then as a vote administrator, you can visit the reporting section, which I'll show you in just a moment, to download the tally, vote status reports, for example, who voted online and when. So if you're looking for a quorum, or that report is actually available throughout the open vote period. So if you just want to continually chase voters down, make sure that they participate online, those reports are always available. I'll show you those in just a sec. So process of setting up a ballot, pretty easy. The other module that I want to share before I dive into the reports is the voter roster. This is where I personally think associations spend the majority of their time leading up to their first vote. This is the process of putting together the voter roster. We can upload a voter roster from a simple CSV, comma separated file that can be built out in Excel. We'll actually provide you with a template where you'll be able to fill in the voter name, the voter email, if you use a street address or a unit number, all of that can be entered in the spreadsheet, and then it can be uploaded here, which will automatically populate your voter roster here. When you upload a voter roster, we do not activate voters, we do not invite them. That will be done when you're ready. So the vote roster can be built progressively and reviewed before your voters are invited to activate their accounts. If a voter has multiple units tied to a single email, we'll ask in the spreadsheet that they be listed multiple times with the email address. So in this case, you see I have a demo voter email address, and I have 2 different addresses. They would be listed line 1, name, email, address. Line 2, same name, same email, new address. We'll combine them under one email address so that when the voter logs in, they'll see a little tab that looks like this. This allows a voter to select individual addresses and vote, or vote once for all of their properties. They'll cast one ballot, but it will count for 2 properties. Again, we want to give voters the option to do it whichever way they prefer. I personally think that it's easier, particularly for voters who may have multiple addresses, or if it's an LLC or another corporate entity that may own groups of units. They can cast a single ballot, but it will count for as many units that are associated with that email address. In some instances, I've seen voters have one email address for one unit and another for another. That's fine as well. We do offer weighted voting as well. We do not recommend you use weighted voting for multiple addresses. Weighted voting is really used for fractional voting. So for those associations where voters may have vote points or a fraction of a vote, depending upon the type of unit, size of unit, or other property that's owned, that weight can be adjusted. The default is 100, which is 100%, or one full vote. So if they had half a vote, it'd be 50, and so forth. And then we can adjust that for vote points as well for those associations that use that. And I've had a handful of associations that have vote points rather than single, 1 vote per unit, which is generally the standard. We'll always ask, when you provide us with a roster to upload, we'll always ask. If you're anything other than 1 vote per unit, please let us know, and then we'll have a quick conversation just to make sure we get that squared away before that roster gets uploaded. Once the roster is uploaded, very simple. To activate your voters, you can click everybody and click activate. That will send an email saying to your voter, this association is using BeckerBALLOT. please click here to create your secure password. And then once they have that, they're set to vote. If we add a new voter, and voters can be added, I suggest you don't add new voters 24, 48 hours before the vote closes, just in case they're not in front of their computer or they have technical difficulties. You don't want to be rushing to try to troubleshoot a voting, a login issue when they're getting ready to vote. But, if the vote has opened already and it's open for, 14 days, let's say it's an election in Florida, you can add a voter on day, 10 days before the vote opens and activate them, and they'll get their email and they'll be able to log in, and the ballot will actually be sitting there waiting for them. So, again, goal from our perspective is to help you get as many voters voting electronically as possible. Less paper for you, less postage for you, less manual counting when the vote closes. The one thing that we do also offer is a non-consenting list. If you had a full roster where you had a handful of voters that were consenting and a handful that were not, they can all be uploaded, and the non-consenting voters will sit in a different list. And then if you get a consent from them, rather than manually adding them, they'll already be loaded. You can just mark them as consenting and then activate them from there. Most associations upload just their consenting voters. Again, it's probably more of a record-keeping thing from your perspective than ours, but the option is there should you want to. And then, of course, if you get a voter who's added, but you're not sure if you have their consent, let's leave them in that non-consenting list until you know that you have their consent and you can activate them and email them. BeckerBALLOT, we do, as Andrew mentioned earlier, and as we'll show you in just a moment, we have a support phone number, we have a support form, but we'll never add a voter to a roster on their request. A voter always needs to go to the association, and the association needs to validate that they have the consent form on file. And then the association needs to let us know, yes, this is a voter. Yes, we'd like them to vote electronically, and give us their name, email, unit number, and we'll add them and invite them. Or the association can do it. Again, if they're self-managing the process, they can add and invite. But we don't know the membership of any given association, and we can't take it on a voter's email or phone call that they're eligible to vote online. That has to be done through the association. And as your attorney will tell you, you do need to have a consent form from them saying that they want to vote electronically. If a voter moves away, sells a unit, we can deactivate them. If they've never voted online, they can be deleted wholesale from the roster. But if they have voted online, they do need to be deactivated. They'll remain in the inactive list on your roster. We do that to preserve prior vote data. We never get rid of your portal. We never remove your prior vote data. And in order to preserve the relationship between a voter and their data, the voter has to be in the database, but we can remove them from your active voter roster, meaning they'll never be able to log in and they'll never get an email from the association vote portal. Once your voters have been uploaded, you can check the report status. So we offer a couple of different types of reports. The first vote report is the user report. This will show you every voter that's activated their account once they've been invited to the portal. So if you upload 100 voters and activate them on Monday, on Wednesday, you want to check in and see how activations are going, you can click this user report and it will show you how many voters have activated. You can even download a list of the users so you can validate that against your materials. We can always re-invite voters. So, if a voter has said, oh, I never got the email to activate my account, which usually means it was missed or inadvertently deleted, potentially could have gone to spam. That does happen occasionally. That can always be resent. So we just need to know that a voter, did not activate and can't locate that email. Once a vote has opened, you have a handful of votes available to you during the open vote period. This vote is closed. So you'll see I have the chart that shows the results of an election, and then I have a chart that shows the results of my reserve vote. During an open vote, election results are never shown. We do not show progressive tallies during the election. We do show progressive tallies during any other vote type. And in the case of a ballot that has multiple questions, in this case, you would not see election results while the vote is open, but you would see the reserve votes. We'll always provide the association with a list of the real-time vote status. What that tells the association is, of your roster, who's logged in and who's voted. So if you've got 100 folks in your roster and it's day 5 of your 14-day voting period, and you want to make sure you're going to hit your quorum, and you want to make sure voters are actively participating, that vote can be downloaded, and the association can follow up with any voters that haven't voted. The system, the portal, will send reminders to your voters 3 days, 2 days, and 1 day before a vote closes. And we'll only remind voters that haven't voted. We're not going to remind everybody because it'll just confuse folks. And of course, we don't want to annoy them. So if a voter hasn't voted, they will receive an email 3 days, 2 days, and 1 day before the vote closes. The association will have access to that list at any time prior to that first 3-day email. They can certainly reach out to voters and remind them that the vote is open and that they should log in to vote. But the system will handle those 3 reminders, one of which I think is, in Florida at least, is statutorily required. We also provide the tally report. Again, this button is not going to be available while the vote is open because we can't provide a final tally, a final count, but we can provide that about a minute after the vote closes. So if you were to log in prior to the vote closing, button's not there. After the vote closes, button is there. You can download a spreadsheet which will show numerically the count of any of the questions in the ballot. And then the last report we provide, which can be very helpful post-vote, is a list of anonymous vote receipts. Think of this as the electronic version of an anonymous paper ballot for the association records. So if there's ever a question about a vote count, whether the tally online matches the number of actual votes received, any receipt that is sent to a voter is generated in that receipt report, and it is anonymized. So there's no relation between the selections made on that receipt report and the voter who made the selections. But the count will equal the count that's in the system. So again, we provide as much record keeping and reporting to make the process easy from association management standpoint. So you have a full record and a full accounting of your voter participation and the vote process, and all of that is preserved in the system. Only vote administrators can see this. We always recommend that vote administrator be somebody in association management. Sometimes an attorney will be the vote administrator or one of the vote administrators. This information is never available to voters or the voting population. It's usually shared at a meeting once the other tally, for any paper votes that are being counted. Once those 2 tallies are combined, that's when that information is shared with the association, typically at a meeting or post-meeting. One of the questions that we do typically get when it comes to the voter roster, which I'll touch on briefly, is how do we manage the voting process for voters? Often units are owned jointly, partnership, husband-wife, corporate entity. As you'll see on a consent form, if you haven't already seen one, the association will ask the voters to designate a single email address for voting. Unless you are in an association where you can split your vote, 50% to one owner, 50% to the other, the name on the voter could be the ownership, but they have to designate one email to vote with, and that's how that process is managed. And again, all those communications happen via email. The login process is secured as you typically expect. Same type of encryption that you see when you log into Shop Online. There's an encryption key that's used. So when I log in, my data is transmitted, encrypted from browser to server and back again. So we do encrypt that data, and you'll notice whenever you log in, again, just as you should, just good use of the web. Whenever you're transmitting private information or financial information, it shows up for that little lock in the upper corner there, just telling you the website is secure, but that process is secure. So that's the whole of the system. Again, it's relatively straightforward. We try to make the process as easy as possible from an administration standpoint. The voter experience similarly is easy. When a vote opens, they're emailed. The voter will see the ballot. Click when the vote is open, instead of preview the questions, it will say open to vote. Ballot will open. They will page through the questions, review, confirm that they've reviewed. There's a little checkbox that just asks the voter to review their questions and selections, submit, and then a voter will receive an email confirmation that their vote was received and the selections they've made. So there'll always be a confirmation email that will go back to the voter post-vote. This varies from state to state. In Florida, unless you're of a very specific type of association, first vote in an election controls. So if I were to log in after I submit my vote, election question would be closed. I can change my mind in other vote types. New Jersey, New York, typically the opposite. But again, the system can be adjusted to accommodate. So in Florida, if you are an association that does allow you to change your mind in an election, the system can accommodate. We just need to know that that's appropriate, and we'll confirm that with your attorney, and then that flag can be switched so voters can change their mind. We do start off based on when the association signs up with some default values. So if the association is in Florida, signs up for electronic voting, puts the address in Florida, system's going to configure itself for Florida voting, New Jersey, New York, etc. It will do that as well. And then we'll have a couple of questions just to validate that there's no changes to the way the system needs to work. That's the demo. Again, try to make it as easy as possible. But of course, we're here to help, and we certainly are happy to set ballots up, help with voter roster uploads, assist in getting your voters onboarded. We do have some materials that we share with the association when they sign up, including instructions and a video for your voter population, so that they can, easily onboard to the system. I'm not going to say that there won't be questions. There usually are a handful, and of course, the more familiar voters are with using electronic systems, the easier it'll be for them. But we do have an 800 number, and we are here to help. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and of course, there are probably some additional questions I didn't cover, so I'll let Andrea ask those questions.
Great. If you can go back to the first slide deck with the pricing. Sure. So I think it was slide 4. Thank you for that. That was great. So everyone just bear with us for a second. Perfect. So the most amount of questions that were asked was around pricing. So put this slide up on screen here and I'll walk you through it. Clients of Becker Law Firm do receive premium pricing, but I would say that about probably 50% of the clients who sign up with us are not clients of the firm. They still see value in utilizing the software. So we do have 2 different pricing options. So the way that we price our software is not based on how many members you have in your association. It's not based on how many voting members you have. It's based on the use of the software. And we have 2 options for that. One is a single vote or a single voting event. So you have one time during the year that you're going to utilize the software. That's a single vote. Or unlimited voting for the year, meaning you have multiple opportunities that you are going to utilize the software for multiple votes during the year. And that also unlocks the survey tool. So the system does have surveys involved where you want to utilize for votes and surveys. That is only available on the unlimited subscription. So for Becker clients, a single vote is $350. And unlimited voting for the year, including surveys, you can utilize the software as many times as you want for as many votes and surveys as you want, is $700. We do have a setup and support fee that's $250. That's regardless of whether you do the single vote or the unlimited. I would say that 99% of the associations that sign up with us take advantage of the setup and support fee. So everything that Brett showed you today, loading in your voter roster, managing the consents of your voters from non-consenting to consenting, adding new voters as their consents come in, building the ballot, having you preview the questions, sending it to your attorney, helping you with reports if needed. That is all what is included under that setup and support fee. That is our time. It takes a lot of time for associations. Many times they will spend time on the phone, through email, and just taking the time to make sure that we are setting everything up properly. For non-Becker clients, the process is the same, single vote or unlimited. It's $750 for a single vote or $1,080 for an unlimited for the year. And that setup and support fee is $325. If you are a Becker client, when you do sign up with us, it does ask you who your attorney is in the system when you do sign up. Becker will validate that on the back end. So we do need to have the name of your attorney, and we do validate that. But again, non-Becker clients who sign up with us, part of that support fee is that we do want your attorneys involved. Nobody wants to go through this system and have a contested vote. So we like to have the attorneys involved as much as possible. So with that setup and support fee, if you give us the name of your attorney through email, we will send them screenshots, just like we are required for Becker attorneys, for them to review and bless the vote before it goes live. And then we know that everybody has seen it and approved it. And that process does go very smoothly. We do require a minimum of a 72-hour turnaround time for setting up your ballots. As you can see, what Brett showed you, it does not take very long to set everything up. However, when we are handling multiple associations, we do need the time to do it. We don't like to be rushed because we don't want to make mistakes. And we also need time to make sure that you're available to review. And we need to make sure that your attorneys are available to review, and they might not be available immediately. So we do ask for that 72-hour turnaround time. We do not allow somebody to call us, Monday morning and say, set this up and we want it to go live by 1 p.m. It is possible for that to happen, but we cannot guarantee it. There just might not be enough time. So that's how the pricing works. And Brett, if you want to go to the next slide in terms of support and how to contact us. So if you go to BeckerBALLOT.com, you will see an 877 number, a toll-free number that you can contact. Many times you will get the voicemail where you can leave a message. It typically means that one of our customer service team is on the phone helping another client. We pull those voicemail messages down. As long as we have all of your information, your phone number, email, etc., we'll call you back or contact you via email with the information you gave us to help. That number is typically used for voter support. Password resets, or they might not have seen or gotten the email for activation. They might have deleted it. Maybe it went to spam, or they ignored it and didn't know what it was. And so they're calling to get a reactivation email. On our website, if you go to BeckerBALLOT.com, you'll see two links right up in the front, one that says Find My Association and one that says Contact Becker Ballot. Where the arrows are, the Contact Becker Ballot is the easiest and quickest way to get a response from us for voter support or even admin support. You fill out a form with your association information, phone number, email address. That will then make sure that we don't mishear an email over the phone, or somebody said their phone number wrong and we couldn't hear it and call them back. If everything is typed in, we get the email, and it's the easiest and quickest way for us to support folks. As Brett said, we also do have a support form that if we are not in the office, we will usually put that in our out of office that people can fill out. It opens up a ticket, and again, your issues will be addressed. So there are multiple ways to get a hold of us. When a vote goes live, associations typically give that 877. And I always recommend that they give that contact form link out. As Brett touched on, and I will just reiterate, the greatest success of the use of Becker ballot is education and communication from the association to the members. A rushed process never works. So communicating that you're utilizing the software, how it works, how to contact us, putting the contact email into people's address books so the email doesn't go to spam. Multiple and ongoing and consistent communication from the association to the members definitely increases adoption over time. We have seen this year over year, and our job is to make things easy for you. And what we want is to have successful votes go through our software, right? We're here to help you. And I think one of the best ways we can do that is to ensure that you have enough knowledge to communicate that information to your association members. Okay, so with that being said, Brett, I'm going to lob you a couple of questions. You might have touched on some of these, but I'm going to call out a few of them again. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So let's see. Richard Dennis from Fort Lauderdale asked us, can any board member or management person have access to who has voted and how many has voted before the official end of voting?
Yeah, so good, very good question. The association, well, again, it's dependent upon who's an admin in the portal, and we typically recommend that it not be a board member or somebody who might, be running for an elected office on a ballot. It should really be a neutral management person from the association management. They can see who voted online. They can see when they voted online. They cannot see the voter selections. So again, simply for purposes of participation and to achieve quorum, there is a report that will show them who voted and when. Beyond that, the data is not available.
Great. And as we mentioned before, we do always recommend it is a neutral third party that has access. People ask us, well, who is that neutral third party? We can't necessarily tell you who it should be. Sometimes it's the attorney, sometimes it's the property manager. But like Brett said, it should never be, somebody who is on, running for a board election that does have access. If we see that, and we do, we will flag that. And contact the association back, sometimes contact the attorney to let them know, because sometimes that does happen. If an association sets up the vote themselves and we do notice it, we will flag that. So there's some checks and balances there. Okay, so next question from Beth Dubois from Woodland Village. We didn't really talk about this, so this is actually good to touch on. Can you have both online voting and paper ballots? So there are a lot of associations that there is definitely a portion of folks that will not consent to vote online, and the association will still be doing paper ballots. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's common. I don't know that we have any association currently that has 100% adoption for electronic voting. We have a number of associations that have a very high percentage of voters voting electronically, but there are usually a handful of folks that will still want to vote on paper. Obviously, recommendation is the voters who are voting on paper, and the association will know this based on the voter roster, don't add them to the electronic roster. So they won't receive an invite to vote electronically. They won't receive a login, so there won't be any confusion. You'll count those paper votes just as you normally would. You'll get a set of results when the vote closes electronically, and you'll add those together typically at your meeting. Conversely, and again, talk with your attorney about this, but if a voter's consented to vote electronically and they receive the notice packet, they don't need to get a ballot in that packet. They're going to be directed to vote online. So you want to prevent them from potentially inadvertently submitting a paper ballot and still voting online. So, you want to try, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think the largest part of the process, the most time-consuming part of the process, is assembling that voter roster, just to make sure you've got your only your electronic voters, only your consenting electronic voters in that list, and you've got a separate list of voters who are going to still participate on paper, and we'll get a full packet with a ballot versus just a packet with just the materials and the sample ballot.
Great. And then just to continue that, I'm not sure if this is an actual question, it may be, but what happens from a reporting perspective with paper ballots and electronic with the tallies? So let's talk about that.
Our system only generates the electronic tally. We don't ask you to load up the paper count. That was a conversation early in the development of the system. It would be an extra step, and I think it does potentially it adds an opportunity to introduce error. You count your paper ballots as you normally would. We're going to generate a tally of the electronic participation. So you'll have those numbers, and then they can be added together, and you have a complete and total tally of your vote participation.
Perfect. Okay, so Omar is a property manager in Florida, and he is asking about how secure is the integrity of the system to prevent one owner from voting for another?
So a question we're asked all the time. People are concerned. All communication happens through a voter's email. So unless a voter has access to another voter's email, it's not something that's going to happen. We are adding, and it will be live as an option. It's not going to be required. It will be an optional add-on. We are adding two-factor authentication. The reason it's optional is it is an extra step for the voters, and we are obviously mindful that some voters may be less technically adept than others. It will be an extra step for those of you who've used two-factor authentication on other websites, whether it's for work or personal use. You log in, you get a text message that asks you to take the number from the text message and enter it back in the website to log back in. Extra step. Which we anticipate will require a little bit of additional hand-holding by the association. So optional should add that additional, maybe a little over necessary, but overly necessary, that additional step for validation. But again, it's going to be real tough for somebody to vote on behalf of somebody else without access to that person's email. So my belief is it's not something that you'll ever experience or need to be concerned with. And from a data integrity standpoint on the back end, for those of you who have any interest in this, all the data is anonymized and kept separate. So when you sign up your association, that association gets its own portal and gets its own database, not commingled with any other association data, and all that data is anonymized in the system. So even if somebody had access to that data, it'd be meaningless to them.
Great. Kim is a community manager from First Service, and she is asking, we touched on this a little bit, we'll just reiterate, how is it prevented that two votes from one unit be submitted? For example, a husband and wife are both listed as owners. Does the notice get sent to both owners, and what process is in place that prevents them both from submitting a ballot?
Yeah, so a great question, and one that another question that we do hear a lot. It really depends on the voter roster, right? We have to rely on the association to provide us with the roster, and that roster does need to have a single email for the unit. Again, unless you're allowed split voting, which I do have, I do see associations that do have it. 50% for one voter. I have an association that's got a live vote now here in Jersey. 50%. The voters have to designate this in advance in this association. Husband votes half, wife votes half. But in a case where you've got one vote per unit, those owners have to designate this is the email we will use. And at BeckerBALLOT, we will not take another voter's email address. If they want to change their email address or feel that there was an error in the roster, they need to contact the association. Association needs to validate I've got the consent, or I'm getting a revised consent with a different email address, and then we can update the roster electronically to go to a different voter, to go to a different voter's email address. But again, it really does have to be managed in that way.
Great. Sandra from in Florida, we do get this question a lot. How do proxies vote?
So, you don't need a proxy. You don't need the proxy language in the electronic voting. Your attorney can explain this as well, and probably a lot better than I'll explain it. They'll be a lot more articulate in this regard. But the act of voting online is as if you're voting in person. So you don't need a voter to provide a proxy to vote online. What we do is if it's a proxy question, we'll pull that question out of the proxy. So again, you're not doing an election, you're doing an alteration vote. You need to vote on paint colors. We'll pull that question out, and that will be what appears on the electronic ballot.
Perfect. I will answer this one because we may have touched on this early on. This is from Paul from West Palm Beach. He asked us, all owners need access to the web for this. We have several elderly owners that have never used a computer. So the requirements for utilizing the website there's two of them. You do need an email address, and you do need access to the internet. So as long as you have access to either a phone, tablet, or desktop where you can access the internet, and you do have an email address, you can then vote online. Otherwise, they should probably continue to utilize paper ballots. And we do hear a lot from associations that there's an elderly population in their associations, and so they might not have access to the web. I would say almost all of our associations have that elderly population in there, so it is not unique. And so those are the two requirements, though. They do need an email address, and they do need to have access to the internet. Those are the main questions. A lot of them are repeatable at this point. So I do think that we've hit them all. At this point, if anybody else has any other questions, I would say you can go to the contact at BeckerBALLOT.com, fill out the form. It will go directly to my email. When I respond back to you, I usually respond back from my shift email. So you will see that. Again, my name is Andrea and my partner is Brett. We're from Shift, and we definitely are here to help you out with any questions you have, and look forward to supporting your online voting needs in the future.